Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Tidy Tuesday on Friday with Light. Messed up the intro because we haven't done it for months now. Things just kind of got in the way. But first Friday back to work, energy levels are good. Things that need to be done around the house are relatively low. So here we are. Let's make sure everything's live. And it does appear to be live in all the right places. So, Tidy Tuesday this week is bring your own data. So I'm going to go back to a previous Tidy Tuesday that I didn't do. Week 48, which was information on Doctor Who and the ratings thereof. So step one, we're going to focus on the quote-unquote revived era. So that's Christopher Eccleston and onward. The first thing I want to check is the relationship between these ratings and these ratings, because I believe that the ones in the episodes table are viewership numbers, whereas the IMDb ones are quality numbers. So I want to see if they have any relationship to one another. Hey there, Zeke. So, step one, we need to filter this on the era. And so to filter things, you just toss it into a filter where a column is a certain thing. So we should be able to just take episodes. Is it? Nope, that's not it. I know there's a shortcut, but I don't remember what the shortcut is. There it is. Control-Shift-M. We're going to use it a lot, so we should remember that. So we're going to filter this on era equals revived. Could not find the thing because we don't have the necessary stuff. I think this is the one we need. There we go. So before 172 by 12, after 172 by 12. Makes me wonder whether that even did anything. So can we just do unique of this sub-era? Okay, so revived is the only era included in this table. And so we don't even need to filter it. We can just join them together. Okay, so we should be able to just do episodes, merge, IMDb on, and then we look up merge because I use the word on I don't know if they use the word on. By. And so season number, oops, episode number. Should just work. Object season number not found. Oh, I wonder if that's actually what it's called in the other table. Nope. They called them different things. So by X is that. By Y is season, comma, epnum. Object season number not found. Okay, so put them in quotes. Bum, bum, bum. And then it shows a whole bunch of the descriptions, but we successfully did a thing, probably. Oh, but there's a problem. There are 2 ratings columns. So we need to add suffixes. Eps, comma, IMDb. And suffixes, so we put the underscore before it. Okay, so it only adds the suffix to the ones that it doesn't, like it needs disambiguated. So we have rating EPS, rating IMDb. This rating N is from IMDb. It's how many ratings there were. And so now if we wanted to plot EPS versus IMDb, that should be fine. So the data is df, the aesthetics are x equals rating, I don't know, let's do IMDb on the bottom, because I imagine that to be a more restricted number than y equals rating EPS plus is it just GG point? Is it points? Geom point, right? Geom, because we're adding geometry to our plot. Geom point. Right. We actually need to have the library for that if we want to actually use it. Okay. So here we are with our lovely ratings. And so one would expect the quality of the episode to mirror the ratings, but it's not necessarily the case. Hey there, Mac. Particularly, like, what even is this rating? So I might actually want to check the UK viewers, because I'm not certain what this rating even is. Like, where did they get this rating from? That is between 76 and 90 something. So let's try swapping this out for UK viewers. Yeah, now this one you might expect to have some correlation, but not a ton, because you don't know before you watch it whether or not it's going to be any good. And so, like this one, you've got the highest viewership of all time, and yet it got less than a 7 on IMDb. Which makes me wonder, which episode is that? So let's find out. How do we figure that out? That's a good question. I want to extract. Oh, right. So we could just do a filter by UK viewers equals max of UK viewers. I mean, that should be all it takes. So, season 11, episode 1. The Woman Who Fell to Earth. So season 11, that's probably Jodie Whittaker's first episode. Because you had 1 season of Eccleston, then 5 of Tennant, which puts you at 6, 3 of Matt Smith, that puts you at 9. But then you had 3 of. That doesn't make any sense. I don't. Unless my numbers are off for how many of each Doctor there were. Well, I've got all of episodes in here. So why doesn't it include the actor. Because you have the director, you got the writer, they don't have the... How do you not have the actor in the data set? Seems kind of important. Yeah, so... Yeah, that's Jodie Whittaker's first episode. Massive viewership. Relatively low rating. Like, not terrible. There have been much worse. But relatively, rating to viewership wise, it's a little overwatched. Makes me wonder if each of these is somebody's first episode. Now I kind of, like, I didn't plan to do anything with Shiny, but like this is the ideal case for Shiny, where you just hover over the point and it would tell you which episode, like what season, what episode, what, like you could just have it show you the information about that specific point. But I am not exactly in the mood for that right now. But I am curious then. Oh, really? Did they each only get 3? For some reason, I thought Tennant got more. Yeah, we're not doing the early who knows what even happened stuff. We're sticking with the new age. What is appreciation index? Interesting. I don't know anything about this appreciation index. Because I don't do data science in the UK, so now we see some of that going on. And so that makes me believe that that's what this rating is. Yeah, so the IMDb rating is 6.8, but the appreciation index is 83. So that would put it right here, right smack in the middle. Now this one, there's a fairly reasonable trend where you have this dead zone where you don't have things that were highly watched but low. Wait, yeah. Lowly watched but highly rated. But you do have this one over here super highly watched. So it's number 2. Let's see. Let's see how we can get that. Can we just sort it? I don't remember if that's an R thing to do. It is. So if we just grab this number, put that in here, we can now see that that got a 76. It had a ton of viewers. Season 1, Episode 1. I disagree with that entirely. Like, I'll agree that it's not their best. Yeah. Nice middle of the pack. That first episode was... it was fine. But for it to be the lowest appreciation index? Very highly watched, very lowly ranked? Nah. No way. Okay, and then I want to see where rating IMDb is the minimum. So this terrible outlier all the way down here, below a 4 on the IMDb ratings. Season 12, Episode 3. So I've never seen this one, so I don't know how bad it is. But, oh my goodness. People are saying it's just the worst. Having decided that everyone could do with a holiday, Graham accidentally teleports himself, the Doctor, Yasmin, and Ryan to a luxury resort for a spot of rest and relaxation. However, they discover the place where they're having a break is hiding a number of deadly secrets. What are the ferocious monsters that are attacking Tranquility Spa? I mean, just from that description, it doesn't sound worse than a lot of the episodes. But, like, I could see how this could just be a campy monster romp that doesn't really land. But I can't really say. I've never seen this episode. But if both IMDb and the Appreciation Index agree that this was a terrible episode, I could see it being a terrible episode. I don't know if airing in January of 2020 had any effect on that. But I think having the doctors in there would come in handy. So I think I might add it. Okay, so it's just got the first 12 seasons. Does not have the new one. Which is fairly understandable. Wait, there were only 6 episodes? Oh, right, with that time period. Yeah, I don't know. That's a little odd. Okay, so we've got this. We've got we got this here, which is an interesting thing to see. I want to do a little tiny bit more with this. So it'll probably do low S by default, which is fairly straight. So let's see how it looks with good old-fashioned linear regression. I mean, they're not too different. You get a bit more in the way of uncertainty around the edges with this because, well, you've got fewer points to work with. You're not really sure whether or not this point is real. What I'm concerned about are points like this. So, like, this would be rows, where the IMDb rating was okay, but the appreciation index is just awful. I'm also interested in this one over here, where IMDb gives it a 9 point something, but it's only got an 80 appreciation index. So let's check that one. Okay, so we're going to filter where rating eps equals 80, because there's only 5 of those. And so you get this 9.6. Heaven sent. Oh. Okay. Yeah, it's sometimes hard to tell which episode it is from just the name. But I'm fairly certain that's the one with Missy, isn't it? 2015. I don't know. feel like I've seen this one, but I'm not entirely certain. Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen this one. But that makes me wonder what the next one was. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, so yeah, these stark disagreements. I don't know. It's a bit odd. And like, none of them strike me hard enough to. Like, the only one that makes me think I should choose IMDb over EPS is Rose. Otherwise, it's 6-1. And so then it becomes a question of which is more important, the writer or the director. I would kind of like to investigate the writers. Excusez-moi. Unexpected token. Do you not like being on a different line? Ah, right. So we need to end the line with the continuation, or else it thinks it's done. Object writers not found. Right. We are merging TidyTuesday writers. Okay, so now we have the writer. And so we want to have the IMDb rating. We're just going to do point for now. Yeah, there's too many writers. And some of them didn't write a ton. So we're probably just going to collect the 3 big writers. And then yeah, we'll keep the 3 big ones and then group the rest as other, probably. So we're going to group by writer and then count. Chris Chibnall. I don't really know that name. I want all the rows. Just how do I get all of them? Oh, interesting. Yeah, so Moffat and Davies are the ones that I would have been able to just tell you. But Chris Chibnall, I don't know. Like, the only other one that comes close is Mark Gaddis. And so I wonder what we should do with this, because you got a few that are fairly easy to see. Actually, let's swap these such that we might be able to see their names. Yeah, so Chibnall here, relatively low rankings, because that might have been during a tough time. But up here you got Davies and Moffat with consistently high rankings. You got this one person, Richard Curtis, who got a pretty high ranking, and that's the only one they ever wrote. Richard Curtis. Season 5, episode 10, Vincent and the Doctor. Yeah, that is well earned, Richard Curtis. That is a really good episode. I mean, it's no Blink, but although that makes me wonder. What rating did that get? 9.8. Well earned up here, Blink. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was Moffat or Davies on that one. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a slightly different version. So let's make a new column. How do we mutate again? We didn't actually in there. Here we are. So name of the column equals, what do we do? Okay. So, okay, so we're gonna call the new column writer main, such that it will be one of the three main writers, or it'll be other. I don't know if it accepts the question mark notation, but I'm going to try it. Writer equals writer in given Moffat Russell T. Davies or Chris Chibnall then writer else other. Nope, it hates it. Okay, so that might work. If else, comma, comma. Okay. Oh no, I borked it. Totally borked. How about we instead cheat a little bit? What? Did I just... It was a typo. Of course it was a typo. Hey there, TDP Carnagle. We're trying to visualize some information about Doctor Who ratings. Okay, so now... Carnage 1. That's a 1, not an L. Okay, so now we've got our 3 folks. So this is a factor of this. With levels in the order that we want them. And so I'm going to make it like so. And did that work? It did the exact opposite, because of course it did, because ggplot is just like that. Because it starts at the bottom, goes to the top. Plot reverse axis. Because this should be just a... Really? Really? You just want me to just reverse it myself? Okay, I will just reverse it myself. There we go, I have reversed it myself. Okay, so now what I would like is half a violin plot on each. Fine, I'll do it myself. Okay, so now we need a ggplot density. Geom density. Easy peasy. But who knows whether or not that'll actually work. It should. But alas, it did not. Because... Oh, because it's a density. Oh man, that's not how it works. So we might need to facet wrap this. Across those 4 categories and get a curve like this for each. Because facet wrapping should be easy. Like, it should not be a problem. Yeah. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Following writer main. Yes, facet wrap. I'll pretend I know what's going on. Very interesting. Yes. So what facet wraps do is you take a particular thing that you're looking at and create a graph for each one. So in this case, we're interested in who wrote the episode. And so if we wrap it based on that, we now get 4 adorable little plots, 1 for each of the peeps. And now we don't need to reverse it because it's not on the axis. And so now we've got Stephen Moffat, who is a really good writer. You've got Russell T Davies, he's all right. Like, he's still pretty good. Chris Chibnall, who... But then again, this might not be Chris Chibnall's fault. There are likely confounders in this. Might not be their fault. And then other is everybody else. You'd expect a normal-ish distribution like this when you've got a whole bunch of different people. And hey there, Cody Hadley. We are working on visualizing data about Doctor Who ratings. And I was interested in how the IMDb ratings match up with the ratings from the UK. So we can build that plot again real quick. So our aesthetics are on one axis, rating IMDb, and on the other we've got rating EPS, which is the British. I forget what it was, but it was the index for how much they like it. Geom points. Oops. geom point. So here you can see they match up fairly well. Particularly if we add a nice little regression line to it. This is a low S regression, so it's allowed to be a little bit curvy. And so more or less they follow a relatively straight line, but you got a couple of outliers, like this one down here, where the IMDb rating is 7.5, but like that's middling on IMDb, but the British rating system gave it a 76, which is the lowest score they gave to any Doctor Who episode. This is the first episode that they aired of the new series with Christopher Eccleston. That episode is not that bad. It's not great. It deserves this 7.5. But I don't think it deserves this 76. As opposed to a dot that's over here under the chat, right over in here, which is a 9.6 and an 80. I haven't seen the episode, so I don't know if it's any good. But then there's this dot up here that falls right on the line because it's at the edge of everything. Again, can't see it under the chat. But that got a 9.8 on IMDb, but wasn't the highest scoring episode on the British one. If you've seen Doctor Who, you can probably guess what that episode is. That got a 9.8 on IMDb. Ooh. So we looked at this a little bit, and so now we're looking at it by writer. There are quite a few different writers, so if we do this right here, there are a lot of different writers. Like, there are some people who get to write one episode and then they're gone. But Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies have done a lot of the writing. They're a lot of what made the show successful. Chris Chibnall appears to have done quite a bit, likely replaced, I think it was Moffat that left for a while and has since come back. I'm not entirely certain. I don't keep up on the politics. And so I was interested in those three and then everybody else. Because, like, Neil Gaiman did a couple of episodes. I kind of want to know which two those are. We'll check on that at some point, maybe. There was one person who got a really high score. I think it was Richard Curtis here. And so Richard Curtis here wrote the one with Van Gogh. And that one got a really high score. I'm like, yeah, you deserve that one. So who wrote the episodes with Tennant? Well, let's find out. Because all we need to find that out is to go in here and filter where season number is in. Okay, so Tennant would have been seasons 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so Chris Chibnall did do one of his episodes. Russell T Davies did most of them. Stephen Moffat did a couple. And so now I'm curious, which episode did Chris Chibnall do? In that one. And so writer equals Chris Chibnall. So the episode's title was 42. On a spaceship headed straight for the center of the sun, the Doctor only has 42 minutes to save Martha and the ship's crew from inevitable doom. So, if you're familiar with that episode, that was the work of Chris Chibnall. So now I'm also interested in, if we take our data and we filter it for just Chris Chibnall, and then we toss it into ggplot with the aesthetics x equals season number plus geom density. So this tells us when Chris Chibnall did most of their writing. And so we can see that it was a bit in here, quite a bit up there. I'm going to just go with like, is there a histogram? How do we... Geom histogram. Okay, he's busy. Code's actually fascinating and insane to think how much people know about coding and stuff. Coding is fun. So season 3 skipped 4, 2 and 5, skipped 6, 2 and 7, and then didn't come back until Jodie Whittaker. So they kind of proved themselves with these 5 episodes and then brought back over here, which makes me wonder how well did they do on those 5 episodes? So we grab these. We want seasons up through season 7. And then we want the mean of rating IMDb. I did not like doing that. Okay, so let's have it do all of these things, pull out the rating IMDb, and take the mean of that. So 7.3. My dude, that is unimpressive. Yeah, I know. They were consistent. You want to get in coding, your brain doesn't want to watch bajillion hours of tutorial videos or go to class. I didn't do either of those things. But then again, I grew up a long time ago. And so we didn't have YouTube. I didn't have classes at my school. But we were just getting the internet. And so a lot of my training came from just poking at the JavaScript on websites. Prior to that, I learned QBasic from a book. Just one book. But I didn't read the book cover to cover because it'll melt your brain. Because learning to code is learning a language, and babies don't learn the entirety of the language. They are exposed to the parts they need, and they figure out the parts that get them what they want. And that's what sticks. And then you keep adding on to those super important things little bit by little bit after that. And so, to me, tutorial videos and classes are not necessarily what you need. A well-taught class, maybe. But what you really need is a goal. That if you have a programming goal, then you can become a programmer. Like that is my feeling on the subject. Other people are welcome to disagree. But to me, the goal is way more important than any of the rest of it. Because without a goal, the classes and the tutorials and all that, they just won't stick. And so in here, we're like, oh, I'm curious, and so I write some code. And sometimes I don't know how the code goes, so I look it up. And so I knew the term facet wrap because I've done it before. But that might not be how you look it up. You'll look it up with, I want multiple plots. And so if we just go over here and go ggplot multiple plots, it'll give you a couple of different ways to do it. First of which is facet wrap. And so by having something I wanted, it was easier to say what it was that I wanted, and then you search for it and you're good to go. Yeah, and sometimes it's small goal, just get it to work. Other times you have a big goal in the distance and you're like, okay, where do I start? And then usually it's you get something on screen and then you get it to move. And then you realize you need to know trigonometry. And so you teach yourself trig in 6th or 7th grade. Like that's how programming goes. It's quite the rabbit hole. It's not too late to get out. I kind of want to modify my scene because I'm losing too much of my screen to the chat. There we go. I want to get my character to move. First things first, gotta learn rocket science. No, that is not how you make games. You do not learn rocket science. You reinvent rocket science. Because real rocket science will not make your rocket move the way you want. That's why the gravity in all video games is completely off the wall. Because most likely, it's not quadratic. And the gravity is much higher than in reality because it needs to bring you back to the ground real fast. And regular gravity seems like it does that, but it's just because you barely jump. Okay, so we've got these. Now I need to look into facet wrap to see whether or not I can make it one on top of the other instead of 2 by 2. Yeah, we got end row end call. It's not great. Because, like, I want to be able to line them up such that you can see it, but you also need to be able to line them up the other way as well. So I think what we need instead is to have the color be from writer main instead. Have them overlap. Which is not great. Hold a button, go to the moon. Once you hit the top, boom, welcome to the ground. This is slightly better. Have a good one, Carnage. Thanks for being here. Because I kind of like it, but it's still kind of noisy. Like, it's easier to read because you can see where these line up. You can see where it lines up side by side. Yeah, and like, this is the zone where Chris Chibnall was for the first 5 episodes. And then they did 14 more. So that would lead me to believe that they still have this bimodal shape. But you would just remove 5 from this one. You have the 14 left. And so, like, Chris Chibnall at their best is comparable to Russell T Davies at their worst. And definitely Stephen Moffat at their worst. Okay, so how do we change the name on the legend? Well, it would be easier if we just cheated. Because case sensitivity. Oh, right. Writer may not found. Phil is writer. And then we modify the labels. Well, we definitely need these labs regardless. All right, we didn't import whatever was necessary for the string wrap. Well, we'll probably need all 3 of these by the time we're done. X lab, Y lab. Should have known that, but here we are. These are functions. Brilliant. Next up. Let's grab all of this for the style. Let's comment out all of the stuff that we did for figuring things out. Man, I love this style. However, we are probably going to want to change some of the coloration. Because I'm thinking we should give it a nice Doctor Who flair, give it a nice blue background with white text. So let's do a search for Doctor Who colors X code. Because of course the internet knows this. In what world would the internet not know this? Okay, so let's say we did this. Okay, so it's super easy to change the colors. But we do need to know for ggplot theme background color. I suppose I could look this up in there, but okay, so panel background, element rectangle, but that's the panel. We also want the whole thing. Plot background. So it's an element, rectangle, and then you fill it with a color. And so fill with that. Okay. Then we grab probably this for the text. It doesn't really look that good. Like you kind of need the stark white And even then, this thin font doesn't really work on it. Okay, so then legend background. Fill equals, then we grab the color. Let's go with this one. Okay. Okay, so then legend. Legend title. Okay, we don't need the margin, we don't need the size. We do need the family. And we do need the color. That's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. We need to up the alpha a little bit, though. Maybe 0.4? I think 0.5 was the way to go. Okay, and then is that the panel grid? Yeah. So panel grid, element, line. Fill is... I probably shouldn't be hard coding these. I should probably come up here and call them dark, medium, and light. And then grid is dark, Legend medium. Dark. And dark. And that did not work. So line probably doesn't like fill, probably likes call or color. There we go. Still not great. Let's push it to 0.6. 0.7? Too far. Okay. And so we have just explored visually a few things, because there are a lot of things that go into a show being successful or not. It's unclear whether or not it was Chris's writing or Jodie Whittaker's acting or the director's directing that led to this performance over here compared to Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat. That part's unclear. But even still, their first 5 episodes were just kind of average for Doctor Who. And so it leads you to wonder, why were they in particular chosen? I do want to check one more thing before we finish up. And that's the other writers that had comparable numbers of episodes. So let's get rid of this filter. Group by writer and count. Actually, we do want to limit this to before before Jodie Whittaker. So that would put Chris Chibnall at 5, Gareth Roberts at 5, Toby Whitehouse at 7, Mark Gatiss at 9. So the people we're going to investigate are Gareth Roberts, Mark Gatiss, and Toby Whitehouse. So what we're going to do is filter this on one of these 3 writers. Well, actually, no. Let's look at each one individually. Okay, so first one, Gareth Roberts. Let's describe them. Is that not what I want? Do I want summary? Yeah, so summary is what I want. Okay, so Gareth Roberts, Mark Gaddis, Toby Whitehouse, and for good measure, Chris Chibnall, but we want this on a subset. Okay, so this is all pre-Jodie Whittaker. And so Mark Gaddis had some trouble so with 9 episodes, they were probably not the pick. Gareth Roberts looks pretty average. Had a pretty decent episode, had a not so great episode, median at 7.6 right here in the middle. They pretty much exemplify this curve. Chris Chibnall is fairly similar, with between 7.2 and 7.5. They actually exemplify a slightly lower part of that curve. Let's do this plot again on pre-JW. Wait, what? That's weird, density thing. That's real weird. We should be able to fix that. Maybe not, because like he's just got so few. Like they've got so few, so it's all crunched together, so you don't get a nice smooth plot. That's why we did the grouping. Oh well. But here we have Toby Whitehouse, who had I think 5 as well. Their average was higher. They had one flop, but most of their work was pretty darn good. And then for reference, Russell T. Davies and Stephen Moffat. So Russell T. Davies had a comparable middle, wider extremes. Stephen Moffat had a much higher middle. And so, like, in the worst case, was still down at 7.2, but even by the first quartile, was higher than the maximum of these two. And so his worst work is comparable to these two's best to that point. And so just given this data, I probably would have tried to get Toby Whitehouse, and they probably did. I would not be at all surprised if going into season 11 they contacted Toby. Supposing Toby is still working. What is Toby working on? I mean, it would have been prior to Noughts and Crosses. What was Toby doing for those couple of years? That's an interesting question. What was Toby up to for those couple of years? I can't imagine they didn't look at these numbers. Although they might not have been using these numbers. They might have been using the other numbers. Yeah, because if they use the British AI score, this might be a different story. Wow. This is a very different story. Goodness. Because according to this, Chris Chibnall is just a good writer on par with these two, and given the choice amongst these four, you don't go with Mark Gatiss, but it's a toss-up with all the rest. So let's take a look at this plot with the EPS rating instead. And so here, Stephen Moffat's down there with a little second hump over there. And Russell T Davies is like generally the better writer with a bit of a dip, like more variance, but a higher average. And Chris Chibnall was quite popular for the 5 previous, but then got railed on by the UK audience for the Jodie Whittaker stuff. So I think we may have discovered a huge discrepancy between either the way the data is collected or the reception of it in the UK versus everywhere else, or the UK versus people who bother to go on to IMDb to leave ratings. But depending on which rating you look at, you've got a completely different story. Okay, so what was that index called? Audience Appreciation Index. What? Got patchwork in there. We should be able to divide these. Isn't that how that works? That's the animated one. That's not the one I want. Oh, right. So I want to do something like this. So this is plot 1. This is plot 2. Where did the data come from? The DataRtist package. Oops. Okie dokes. I'll probably get rid of the big titles on these and just put it in the labels. Save on space. Excuse me? Where did you put it? Oh, I didn't set the working directory. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait a minute. Why are they the same thing? Because I didn't change them. Okay. Much better. So yeah, that's a very interesting disparity that I would rather enjoy talking to somebody about. I would probably write a little bit of extra stuff in here if this were going to be a final thing. But yeah, knowing whether or not this is a UK reception versus rest of the world, if it's due to how the data is collected, there are a lot of possibilities for how it could end up with Stephen Moffat being super popular here, but just kind of middling over here. Yeah. And this is what happens when you explore data. You find weird things sometimes. You just keep asking questions, and eventually you just end up at a point where you're going to have to talk to a human being, I guess. The graphic design on this could still use a little work. It's a little bit challenging to read these over here. The size in general, I have a feeling, just doesn't quite work. I would need to scale up all of the thin fonts. But all in all, it went pretty well. Took us an hour and 45, which is a decent amount of time. And so I'm probably going to call this stream pretty much here. I'm going to take a 15-minute break, and then I'll be back with a Hat in Time. So if y'all are into the video games, you can stick around. If you're not, thanks for being here. Thanks to the couple of people who are new that stopped by. It's always nice to see new folk. Mac, it's always nice to have you here. And Hat in Time in a bit.